The first Omen is directed by Arkasha Stevenson and stars Nell Tiger-Free and is the prequel to the original Omen. A young American woman is sent to Rome to begin a life of service to the church, but encounters a darkness that causes her to question her faith and uncovers a terrifying conspiracy that hopes to bring about the birth of evil incarnate. Now, I've never watched the original Omen before. I don't have any nostalgia for it, so any callbacks or references to the original film that this movie has, I don't recognize. There's a few instances where I do recognize that something was from the original Omen, but apart from like 2 scenes, I don't know much about the characters, the names, the types of things the original movie does that this movie might do callbacks to. So that is for like the reason why this review will be like, I would say, not like a comparison to the original. I'm not going to be comparing it in any way because I've never seen it. I don't have anything to compare it to yet. And I kind of like that, with this being a prequel and me just going into the universe for the first time. I could think of this as like a first movie. Then I could probably watch the next one, the first original, as like the sequel. So that's how I'm gonna be viewing this franchise. So how is the first Omen as a movie on its own? What do I think of it with its characters and horror? I think it actually works pretty well. I surprisingly had a pretty good time with this movie. I thought it was one of the better horror movies to have come out in recent years. There's a good sense of tension built all throughout. The atmosphere is really claustrophobic, and the overall themes that this movie is going for and how it presents its world I found very intriguing. How the characters are written here I thought was really well done, and the main character played by Nell Tiger-Free I think was a really compelling character, and Nell Tiger-Free's performance was absolutely incredible and is the standout in this entire film. I think she did a really good job bringing this woman's physicality to the role in many ways in the final act, and in the first act of the film, giving that sense of innocence that a nun should have, being a free spirit trying to be as truthful to God as possible. And she's going through a bit of a conflict within that, and we start to see a darker side to her character that continues on throughout the rest of the film and has us understand what is really happening just behind the scenes. As for the horror elements, as I said, it's really well done. I think the horror and suspense scenes all really good. There are like 3 jump scares in total that I could count off the top of my head, but they really aren't that drastic, and they aren't like cheap jump scares. They are jump scares that build tension at least and actually pay off something for later on, or is a signal of something bad that is about to happen. And the rest of the film is just suspense and terror, and I really like the final act and how it portrays its horror elements, and it gets very grotesque and bloody in many ways. This is a hard R film, and it used its rating to its advantage, and it was able to do a lot of disgusting stuff that I think was able to amplify the horror even more. As for the filmmaking, the cinematography and directing is solid. This is a beautifully shot film that uses the environment in many cool ways. This 1970s era where a lot of kids are rebelling in the streets of Rome are a bit grimy and dirty, I thought was very well portrayed. And even some of the more peaceful areas of Rome don't feel safe at all. You do not want to be in this area. Something feels like it's always lurking behind you, and you just want to get out of there. And Stevenson's directing, I think, elevated all these moments altogether, and she's really good at keeping the suspense there and having you stay with it all throughout, especially in that final act. The only problem that I do kind of have is that the second act can drag on a bit at times, and there's a sense of repetitiveness in the plot, and I felt like the movie could have like trimmed a little bit of that fat down a bit. And some of the side characters I felt like were a bit underutilized and underwritten. Like there's this one priest character that I felt like didn't get any dialogue at all, but is then all of a sudden important to the plot later on in the film. I felt like the movie could have done a better job at implementing this guy in the second act and having us understand him a bit more while keeping a bit of mystery still as well. And there is this kind of love interest that I felt like was also underutilized, and I felt like a big moment that involved him could have been a bit more impactful if we focused on him just a tiny bit, maybe just one or two more scenes. Like they don't have to be like long extensive character written scenes like having us go into his life, but just more scenes with him and our main character I feel like would have been a little bit better. Overall, I found the first Omen to be quite good and has a really good horror, it has a really good tension and suspense. The final act delivered on everything I wanted it to. The final scene and the way the movie wraps up is a bit Marvelized in my opinion. And I could tell that they are definitely paying homage to something or setting up something for the first film. But other than that, I think the movie was overall really good. If you want to go and have a very spooky time at the theater, I could recommend the first Omen. And if you are a fan of this franchise or you're a newcomer, I could still see this movie pleasing you. But if you're not into like nun horror films like this or Immaculate, then just probably skip this one now, as I know that these types of horror films are not for everyone, and this is more or less the same thing, just really well made and well directed. I'm gonna give the first Omen a B+. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please leave a like, subscribe, comment, and I will see you guys next time.